Hello, hello. Welcome to the stream, everybody. We're picking up right where we left off with this France game. Um, Going to be going after Brittany tonight because Brittany is allied with England and the Papal State. I want to take all that's left of Brittany, Avignon, and I want to mad dog the English however I can. But to do that, I need to build up my fleet. And I took out the bourgeois loans just before the end of the last stream, so we're going to build up our heavy fleets and see if we can't fight the English at sea. This might be a really bad idea, but it could also be fun if we could break the Great Wooden Wall of England early. Start with that. Otherwise, the political situation in Europe is interesting in that the Byzantines are still hanging around in 1511. Look at them go. Junior partner of Serbia, who is somehow still kicking despite a really powerful Austro-Hungarian union going on here. Poland is pretty thick. They might make a good ally. Muscovy is probably going to lose out on a lot of the Novgorod conquest to the Danes, who are still very much in control of both Sweden and Norway. So, oh, and we'll also be trying to get some of the colonial game up and going tonight. That said, our main goal is still very much the expansion of France to her natural borders under the Ancien Regime, the glorious monarchy. Let's crush peasants and Germans and English alike. And we're the number 2 great power now, just behind Ming China. But it's going to happen in every game. The tech is just going to screw them over. Let's take forgive usury. Inflation isn't a huge problem right now, but I would like to keep it to a minimum. I might take economic ideas, maybe. Not sure yet. Need a new... well, I have a general, he just kind of sucks, but he'll do for now. Let's see, how many ships does England have? Probably more, definitely more than I do, but... let's take a look. Just show me rivals. Okay, it shouldn't be that hard to overtake England in terms of heavy ships, because most of their navy is light ships and transports. So if we can out-heavy ship them, we can break their fleet, and then we only need a few transports to get our men over. I can actually build some transports, send my men to Scotland, and then use my fleet to break them. Actually, I would need to know what their army looked like as well. There we go, army. Well, one of my armies is about the size of their whole army, so I don't think this will be much trouble at all. And once we've broken the English, there really is nobody who can stand against us. And the bourgeois loans have such a low interest rate, they are really no trouble. So yes, you'll be... the first part of tonight is probably going to be mostly military build-up. But once we trigger that war for control over Brittany, it's going to get awesome. There we go. Let's get a 10th infantry, 4 cavalry, some artillery, and we'll fill out the rest once we get a good idea of what that composition looks like. And we're still making a healthy profit every month, so we can continue building up, probably. Because it won't take that many men to deal with Brittany. The issue is going to be the Papal State. Because they are pretty... Usually at this point in the game are still pretty beefy. So actually, instead I'll probably build up the Armée Royale over here. Just make it a little bit bigger so it can take the British Isles. And if we call Scotland in, these extra 7,000 men should be useful. Especially if we restore to them some of their cores. And that would really, really screw with England. So yeah, we're looking at a pretty fun go at things tonight. We're going to be making some of our big power plays. The other thing is, the Burgundians are pretty much done, because they're going to have to fight an independence war with Holland before they can even think of taking back the territories I've gained. And I have almost no aggressive expansion right now, so I'm good. And, oh, we got some army professionalism. Always nice. Always nice. Yeah, that'll start putting a strain on our resources, but... I'll take the corruption. It's not that big a deal. It's just 2. I don't want to lose prestige, though, so the nobility can go fuck themselves. But I'll get them right back by summoning the Diet. Don't really want a war with Lorraine just yet. What the bourgeoisie want? Well, we're going to be completing that anyway, so... And those ships are all coming along nicely. So yeah, we'll have 19 total heavy ships. Get that to 20 should be good to fight the English. How many have they got again? Navies. Oh yeah, that should be more than enough to fight the English. 20 heavy ships to 21 ships total. Only about half of them heavy ships. So I think the English are pretty... Oh, the Reformation happened. Looks like it's pretty weak thus far. We're going to be doing relatively historical France, so we're staying Catholic and we're staying a monarchy. I might be able to get Naples in on this war with Brittany, because I guarantee you they want some papal territory. Oh yeah, we might be able to call them in on this. Build anything useful? Not quite yet. Can build some shipyards though, that'll help. Alright. I do apologize if you hear my upstairs neighbors. They must keep a live horse up in that fucking apartment or something, because I hear running from one end to the other all damn day. I'll tell you, the other thing is, I can, hey, welcome to the stream. Thank you. My Lady Renegade did it. She has been my barber since COVID started. Yeah, it's either a live horse or a toddler, maybe both. Maybe they're a family of centaurs. I don't know. It's just annoying the shit out of me. See, I grew up in a row home in part, so we had obnoxious side to side neighbors, but nothing could have prepared me for how bad obnoxious upstairs neighbors are. But yeah, tonight with this game, we're going to be making some of our real power plays. I'm trying to. England's navy is pretty weak at the moment, so I'm trying to outbuild them and beat them at their own game, basically. While I'm at it, I will get troop access to Scotland. I'm going to use them to invade England proper. Just need 12 to tick around. Yeah, but I think this time we can actually do it because England only has 9 heavy ships. And when my initial building flurry is over, we'll have 13. Then I'm just going to keep building more until I hit my force limit. And we should be able to win the naval arms race with Britain, because they're pretty weak right now. I think 20 heavy ships ought to do it. It'll be expensive, but we can do it. Love it. I would love to go to southern France. I've only ever been to the northern part of the country, but I would love to see the southern half. I consider dad jokes to be a very high art form, so keep them coming. Get another few whiskeys in me, I'll start making even worse ones. Just wait. Okay, and how long do I have to do this? Yeah, I've got plenty of time to keep building up my fleet. Then I'm hoping I will be able... True, but that's where the artistry comes in. The artistry is being able to tell the difference between the two and avoid crossing into popsicle stick territory. There's a right amount of cringe that needs to go into every dad joke. If you go too far, it's like over baking a cake. You burn it. It's no good anymore. You got to get it just right, and then you've made the perfect dad joke. Live at the intersection of cringe and funny. This is gonna be rough on our finances. Huh. Alright. Might need to get rid of these troops here. And just rely on one army. Or maybe we could call in the Spaniards. That would also help. Alright. Oh yeah, so I can get Spain, Naples, and Scotland in on this. So that just means I need to build up my transport fleet and I can go to war. So I'll take out another loan. It's going to hurt for a little bit. But it'll all be worth it when we show the English who's boss. There we go. Oh yeah. What a great like me and my buddy are both we both studied history in college, so seeing Sabaton live was fucking awesome. Well, we're ideally in this war, we're gonna get the Scots their cores back. So we're gonna nail England to the wall, absorb the rest of Brittany, and take back Avignon from the Pope. They put on one hell of a show. I saw them in DC a few years back. What album were they touring then? I forget what album they were touring, but that was an awesome show. Only problem with seeing them in DC is the drinks were so expensive. Because DC's a... Yeah, exactly. Because DC is an absurdly expensive city. And the drinks were... Yep, that was it. But they opened the show with... I'm blanking on the name of it, but it's the Swiss Guard song. What is it called? Oh, this is going to bother me. And they did Swedish Vikings in Swedish, which was fucking awesome. Yeah, it was The Last Stand. That was the one they opened with. It was a fucking great show. You were? In DC? No way. Yep, I remember that. That was the first album I was exposed to them on, and I've since listened to their entire discography. Their World War II albums are fucking awesome. They got a real interesting demographic at that shit. Yeah, we might be. I'm just in Baltimore. The closest they came was DC, so I got tickets down there with a buddy of mine. You go ahead, dude. It's awesome that you're that close and you were at that same show. So yeah, we're gonna spend most of tonight obliterating the English. Yeah, I know. We'll pay it back when we've won this war and we can take a shitload of money out of England's ass. I'll give these guys 2 more infantry regiments as well. And we should probably pull this merchant out of Valencia. We don't have a whole lot of control in the English Channel, but I could make... one of these cities my main trade port. I could do... Calais would be good. Need 200 Diplo. Oh, but I think I might end up moving my main trade port to the English Channel. Besides, we have more control in Genoa, but I just made a mistake, so I need to send this guy to go do that. There we go. Alright, fleet should be almost ready. The transports, at least, so I can start moving my men up to Scotland. Because that's going to take a little while. And then with 20 heavy ships, we should just nuke them at sea. Won't even be a competition. Forget the elephant versus the whale. Bitch, I am the elephant and the whale. Yeah, got a handful more heavy ships coming in here. Oh, oh, that's right. I built a bunch of shipyards, so that'll work. Alright, get these transports up here. Heavy ships over here. I accidentally built light ships. That's on me. It's fine. Oh well. No, I don't really want an alliance from this tiny HRE state. But Austria lost the emperorship, so they're pretty much fucked. More transports. Merge these fleets. Alright, I'm probably sending the Armée Royale to England. Or rather, Scotland right now. Merge fleets. You guys get over to Calais. Because as long as I can get the Spaniards in, we should be able to just crush Austria and Hungary on the battlefield. Alright. Time to move these guys to Scotland. And these guys will be my main invasion force. So it'll probably take the Papal State a little while to get here. So I'll take Brittany out first. And then I'll move this army against the Pope while using this army, it's going to be up here, against England. Which, with the Scottish reinforcements, we should be able to win. Okay. Still making money, which is good. But my fleet should just be able to obliterate the English at this point. And again, once the English are gone, we don't have to worry about much. So it would be like, what if Napoleon without England? In which case, most of Europe is probably speaking French, because England, to a less, really, Prussia got knocked out. Oh, that came just at the right time. Because they beat the Prussians, the Russians, oh, not really the Russians, they beat the Austrians, Had it not been for the failed invasion of Russia, well, things might have gone differently. But England doesn't get involved, you probably see a completely French-dominated Europe. What a weird guy Napoleon was. The height thing is largely just propaganda made up after the fact, but he was weird just personally. He had a ladle made in the mold of his sister's own breast, which is just fucking bizarre. He was a bit of an eccentric in his personal life. And then of all the things to kill a guy like that, what takes him out in the end? Stomach cancer. Sort of like Attila the Hun dying of a nosebleed. It's just anticlimactic. He did after sacking Rome, he partied so hard that he got so drunk and developed a nosebleed in the night, but he was so drunk that he didn't wake up. And so he choked on the nosebleed. And then you have Napoleon taken out by stomach cancer. And then I believe... I want to check on this because I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, and then Genghis Khan just fucking fell off a horse. I always find anticlimactic deaths for guys like that to be interesting. Like, Napoleon's one of those guys you would have expected to go out in like a goddamn blaze of glory. Attila the Hun, too. Death in battle almost seemed appropriate for them, but no. Nosebleed. Or stomach cancer. Something totally anticlimactic. Granted, Napoleon would have wanted to go out in battle too. He was that sort of a guy. He was very much a lead from the front sort of man. And legend has it he knew the names of every single man who died under his command. Because he wanted to know, he knew what the cost of his dream was. Meanwhile, Wellington could not have been more different. Napoleon was arguably the greatest offensive commander of his day, whereas Wellington was in many ways the greatest defensive commander of his day. So, Waterloo's interesting for a lot of reasons, but that's one of them. Another one is that their styles could not have been more different. Wellington liked to keep a comfortable distance between him and his men, whereas Napoleon fraternized with the common soldier, and they loved him for it. It's part of why Caesar's men were willing to follow him to the ends of the earth, or Alexander the Great's, is they loved that they cared. 24-4, 26-6. So I'm going to train some additional cavalry and artillery for the units in Scotland. Napoleon's also interesting because he's the last sort of monarch crowned in the cathedral at Reims, although he wasn't crowned by the Pope, as was the tradition for French kings. He was crowned by himself. He invited the Pope up to crown him, but then at the last minute took the crown out of the Pope's hands and put it on his own head, showing that he was not going to be beholden to the papacy like a lot of prior French monarchs had been. And I mean, that's part of why he chose Emperor as his title, because he wanted to distance himself from the Ancien Regime, or the old French monarchy. Alright, I am almost at my naval force limit here. once I get up there, just demolishing the English will be child's play. Granted, I'll be hemorrhaging money the whole way, but trust me, if I beat up England and take their lunch money, it'll be easy to pay all that back in one go. And that is precisely my plan. Restore Scotland to its former glory, crush the English, take all of Brittany, and reclaim Avignon. And then I can probably ditch the Spaniards as allies, because I do want Catalonia. I want to restore Charlemagne's Spanish March. So, yeah, I've got 64,000 men. England's army is less than half of what I've got. They just can't compete. And now my navy should be larger than theirs, at least in terms... Yeah, they might have more light ships and transports, but I've got it where it counts. It's expensive, but it's what it's going to take to knock out my main rival here. And after that, the only, like, continental rival I have is maybe Muscovy, but they're a bit far for me to actually do any damage. Oh, and I have moved the second stream that I do. It's going to be Thursdays from 9 to 11 from now on. Since I've moved, I've learned kind of how my schedule is going to need to work differently, so that is now the time that's going to work best for me. And because I just made affiliate, which thank you everybody who watches for making that happen, I'm going to be trying to make partner next, so I'm going to need to stream more. So you guys will probably be getting a third stream during the week to start out, and maybe more if that goes well. I was thinking maybe a Tuesday stream or something like that. It would also allow me to get through these playthroughs a little quicker. Because divvying an EU4 game up over the course of several weeks, yeah, it does take a long-ass time to do that. Yep, we're hemorrhaging money, but I don't care. If I stick it to the English, I've won. Granted, that was the attitude that got the French monarchy involved in the French Revolution in the first place, but, you win some, you lose some. Alright, our economy is kind of fucked, but... it'll all get better once we beat up the English and take all their money. Which we should be set to do in 1517. And as I'm invading the land of whiskey, I'm going to pour myself some more. Well, I'm not really invading Scotland or Ireland, but I am invading England, who drinks a lot of whiskey too, but... And by the way, tonight I am drinking the Sexton, which is far and away my favorite whiskey. It is a single malt Irish whiskey that I cannot recommend enough. I think it's made by Bushmills, I'm not sure. At least I think that's the parent company, but it is an excellent, excellent Irish whiskey. Hey, welcome to the stream. I have officially made affiliate as far as Twitch is concerned. They finally told me that, so I'm going to be doing the onboarding for that and see if I can't continue growing this little thing I've got going here. I don't. I haven't gone through the, it's like they called it onboarding or something. I just got a message for it today. So this week I'll be going through that, and we'll see where that takes us. I think I need to do it to like officially become an affiliate, but I've met all the requirements, so should just be a matter of going through that now. And then I'm moving the Friday streams to Thursday from 9 to 11, and then I'm probably going to be adding a third stream sometime this month or next month. I'm thinking on like a Tuesday night. Probably Tuesdays and Thursdays 9 to 11, and then Sundays I'm going to keep the 8 to 10:30. Because this is the main stream. This is the big one. This is the one I try not to miss if I can avoid it. But yeah, with how my schedule shakes out now, Tuesdays and Thursdays will work better for me than Fridays, so Tuesdays and Thursdays it's probably going to be. And I'm going to try to start incorporating some different games into my repertoire. Maybe get some Total War up in here. Hey, welcome back. But yeah, I'm probably going to be adding a third stream, and I moved the Friday streams to Thursdays, and I'm going to be trying to get some more games in my rotation. Maybe some Total War. Might get some historical shooters in here if I'm feeling frisky too. So, alright, 2 more ships to go. 3 more ships to go. And we can kick off this war with England. As long as I can still get the Spaniards in. Because as long as I have Spain backing me, Austria and the Papal State won't really be able to do fuck all to stop me. Because this is early game Spain. And I think I have Elan. Do I? No, I need one more idea. So I think I'm going to put off... Oh, I need 2 more ideas. So I think I'll put off the military tech. Yeah, I just got that message today. So I think what I'm going to be doing is... oh, thank you. Yeah, so got one for my granddad there. Got a cowboy hat I picked up at a used clothes store. And I have a Soviet officer's cap I picked up in East Berlin back there. Alright, we are battle ready. Let's fuck with the English now. Do what the French do best and fuck with the English. I don't know, I actually am not 100% sure what channel points will look like from my end, but I'm gonna find out. So tune in for the Thursday stream and you'll find out all about it, because I'm gonna try to get that onboarding done tomorrow or Tuesday. Alright, once my morale is up, and yes, I am hemorrhaging money because of the sheer amount of heavy ships I've built. Sounds good to me. Actually, I have a bottle to drink this is just water to drink the whiskey away around like 9 o'clock when I stop. Alright. Now this should be child's play, because I dwarf the English fleet now. That'll be fun. Definitely, or generals in EU4. Alright, 1 more month. And my 34 heavy ships will crush the English Navy. Time to conquer. And we can get Naples, Castile, and Scotland in on this. Let's go. Okay, this war should be pretty easy. Oh, nope. We want to catch their army so they can't come into our territory and cause trouble. I'm gonna leave the southern campaign to the Spaniards for now, because they should be more than a match for the Pope. Especially because the Iberian wedding has happened. Alright, time to crush the English. Because for some reason they've chosen to march here in a very disorganized group. Okay, we've got this. CK3 will be fun with you guys naming stuff. No, Spain, I really would prefer it if you would go after Avignon and crush the Pope. Come on, I have Elan. This should be... There we go. I have that beautiful plus 20% morale the French get. I mean, that's what I've got to do, because I want to take Avignon. I don't like having this weird little papal area in my land. Also, I should charge war taxes. That'll kind of staunch the financial hemorrhaging I'm undergoing right now. Exactly. That'll be beautiful. But once I take London, I should just have infinite fucking money. It needs to be done. I do want to stay on relatively decent terms with the Pope, but it needs to be done if I want to have my glorious French Empire. I think I can leave the rest of this to the Scotsmen. Yeah, get fucked, Savoy. I don't care about you. Oh, that is a beefy fucking army the Austrians sent. About 40,000 men, looks like. Between my force in the mainland and the Spaniards, it shouldn't be that difficult. I am going to blow up the walls here at Dumfries, or at, yeah, we can afford to do that. At, Northumberland. Alright, come on. You just take it so I can go beat the shit out of the Austrians. Oh, the English broke through, because they have Ireland. We'll catch them. Oh, and Scotland has a 3-star general. Yes, that would that'd be fucking awesome. But yes, oh no, he is only 2-star, but he's about to get a huge infusion of troops from me. There we go. Crush those English pig dogs. Fart in their general direction, my glorious French soldiers. Alright, these guys might need some help, so I'm going to detach siege. And we're still doing great on manpower. It's money that might kill us in this war. But our mainland army finally took that land, so now we can take the Spaniards and go crush the Papal and Austrian forces invading from the south. You guys go back. You guys invade north. We got this. Alright, we took Northumberland. Send these forces north as well. Yes, we can repay that loan. We're going to have to extend the rest of these loans, but we'll pay them all back in one lump. Once we beat the English. Come on, we outnumber them by a lot. Maybe. Alright, once this army is broken, I can probably go straight for London and take the English out of this war. Alright, and now we've got the Spaniards coming south to help. So let's go besiege Avignon and let the Spaniards do the fighting and the dying, so I don't have to sacrifice more French lives than I have to. Let's see, how much would it take to knock the English out, restore Scotland's course, or at least most of them. Alright, so if I take London, I should be able to do that. And England's navy hasn't been able to do anything about me. It's great. And now I've got the full might of the Spaniards bearing down on the Austrian occupation. And they'll probably be... Oh, and then I forgot about the Neapolitans. That's where the English navy has been hiding. Oh, shit. Did not mean to do that. Oh, well. I'm only going to be restoring Scotland's course. At least in this war. Because this war is mostly about me seizing control of Brittany. And then I can probably go right back to destroying the Burgundians. Come on, take London. I know we're losing manpower rapidly. Just take London and we'll be fucking set. Alright, I'll take that free admin power, thank you. We have Elan, so we're really going to be focusing on teching up from now. Once these guys seize London, I can go back up north and destroy what's left of the English army. Because there's not much of them. Because London is where almost all English development is concentrated. And it should be even more of a morale hit when I completely fucking demolish their navy. We'll break England, and then we'll have continental Europe as our playground, basically. Alright, we took Avignon. If I can knock the Papal State out, this gets easier. I'm going to let the Spaniards focus on the Pope. I'm going to focus on the Austrians. Oh, no, we have a Papal army in French territory. We got to deal with that. And yeah, I know, we got to renew it. It's making our inflation go through the roof. Howdy, welcome to the stream. We are in the middle of a war for dominance over Europe. I don't think my computer has the horsepower to run Kingdom Come Deliverance. It is a great game. I have it on the PS4, but I don't think my laptop has that horsepower. They did such a great job with the historical accuracy of that game, though. If you ever wanted a medieval life simulator, that's it. Which I do, so that I was their target demographic for that one. Where did my army go? Oh, that's right, I had them. So yeah, it looks like the Spaniards are beating the living shit out of both the Pope and the Austrians. So you guys go. Do your thing. I'm going to need to help them out in Italy, though. Come on, take London. We're not that far off, and we're going to need to knock the English out as soon as we can. I know it takes a long time to siege London, but it looks like the Scots have... There we go. Alright. Beat them once more. How are you... I have... Okay, we beat the English at sea. That's fucking awesome. There is, and it looks like my heir died, but, ooh. He might have a weak claim, but he is a great heir. So yeah, this is the siege screen. The bigger the city's population, the harder it is to siege down, but... London is one of the harder cities to siege in the game, and I have a mod on that gives castles control of surrounding provinces. Ordinarily, you would just take the actual province, but... I like the mod. It makes forts way more important. God, this whiskey goes down too easy. That's dangerous. Alright, you go, Scotland. I am going to start sending these guys back to the mainland to help out. But once I've knocked England out of this war, it'll be easy. I control London. I can do that, and some money. Because I need money. Lots and lots of money. Oh, the end date is 1812. Oh, shit. Did not mean... Fuck. Alright, gotta go back. Forgot to hand that one back to Scotland. But yeah, this game ends in 1812, start of the Napoleonic Wars. I know. I just don't want this weird one province that I control in the British Isles. It's gross. So I'm save scumming for pretty borders. I hope you all can forgive me. It's save scumming for a good cause, because I hate border gore. Ooh, that could be fun. I have tried Sweden games before. They are hard to get off the ground. Because if the right countries don't ally with you for that first war, you're gonna have a rough time. Because Denmark is a powerhouse in the early game. Because you got to fight them, their allies, and Norway. And Sweden doesn't have a great economy at game start, so you're gonna have a rough fucking time. Alright. There we go. That would be a good, Sabaton themed game. Because they had a whole album based on the copper mine is good, but their economy isn't... They're not lighting the world on fire. They're not like a France or an England. And they don't have the sort of trade income that the Danes get. That is a great fucking album, though. I love the... What is it? The Carolean's Prayer is a great fucking song. Because they sing the Our Father in Swedish. It's great. Yeah, give this a listen. This is a great song. That might have been the best one off that album, in my opinion. Alright, now I need to go send my army to the Hebrides so we can occupy them and give them to Scotland. Because I hate border gore. Yes, I am aware I have OCD. No, I don't really care because I like pretty borders. No, Sabaton is some great fucking music. I love metal. I love history. I love that there's a band that combines those two. Because I love when I get history. History is so fucking metal, and I'm surprised no more... Careless Rex is really good. But no, history is one of the most metal subjects out there, my dudes. Because, like, Charlemagne. There is great fodder for a metal album in the life of Charlemagne. Because this motherfucker slaughtered so many pagans at Worms that the river ran red with blood for 3 days. That is goddamn metal. And I don't care what you have to say about it. It's fucking metal. And that's just one guy. History is the most metal subject in liberal arts, easily. Alright, we took Florence. Hold on, I'll have some troops coming to help you in a second. Like, if any of you out there listening are metal artists... There is some great, great album content in the life of Charlemagne. True, there is a lot of people like to sanitize history, but raw history, if you go back and actually read it, is really fucking metal. It is hardcore. Alright, we should have the English here. So, sue for peace. Give the Scots back their land. And I'll take some money out of you. Don't think I can... Winston Churchill was... like, if you ever think you're a prolific drinker, look no further than the life of one Winston Churchill. He drank 6 Scotch highballs while he was working. While he was winning the goddamn war, he drank Scotch highballs all fucking day. And then he drank something like six bottles of champagne in a day. I wish I could party as hard as Winston Churchill. And then you consider the fact that he managed to run one of the deadliest wars in human history while drunk off his ass most of the time. Goddamn legend. I actually have a whole book of Winston Churchill quotes on my shelf over here. If you go to London today, they have the war rooms that he actually ran the war from perfectly preserved. It's awesome. Yeah, Churchill was fucking awesome. I think it might be the last name. The last name is pretty badass because there was also a Mad Jack Churchill who fought in the Second World War. And he killed Nazis with a longsword, with a Scottish basket-hilted broadsword, which he carried because he thought, and no officer should go into battle without his sword because he was underdressed. But he also has the most recent recorded longbow kill in English military history. To signal his men to attack, he sniped a Nazi officer with his goddamn longbow, and then proceeded to play his fucking bagpipes while charging the Nazi line. The guy was fucking nuts in the best way possible. And then he lived to be 96 years old. He was one of the founding members of the British Commandos. Okay. Just gotta finish kicking the shit out of the Austrians, and we can probably bring this one to an end. Let's see. He charged beaches in Norway, playing his bagpipes, and when he was actually captured by the Germans twice. So he gets captured by the Germans when his commando unit gets destroyed on an invasion, and as his unit is like dying and being captured around him, he's playing Will You Know Come Back Again on his goddamn bagpipes. Just fucking nonchalantly. Goddamn legend. And then he gets sent to 2 separate death camps. He breaks out of one, gets captured while walking back to Allied High Command, and then breaks out of the second that they threw him in. And then he gets back to British territory and he finds an American tank unit that is currently in, I believe they were in Germany at this point. And then they send him back to England, and then Germany surrenders. So the Brits are planning on getting involved in the Pacific War. So he gets sent to Japan, but while he's on his way, the U.S. drops the nukes on Japan, and Japan surrenders. And he was quoted as saying, "The damned Yanks, if it weren't for them, we could have kept the war going another 10 years. The guy was a fucking lunatic in the best way possible. And then he spent his retirement playing with remote control boats on the River Thames. Dude was fucking awesome. Yeah, and then he lived into his 90s. He survived the impossible and lived into his fucking 90s. I wish I was that tough. Also, I can probably delete some of these heavy ships. You know, I just love that, like, this guy serves in the Second World War, leads this, like, heroic commando unit in raids against the Nazis. Oh yeah, sure thing. I think the next stream will be Thursday. I'm still kind of planning the Tuesday streams, but definitely Thursday, maybe Tuesday. So, you have a good night, dude. Thanks for turning out for the stream. Alright, I should be able to take the papacy out of this war now. Sue for peace. I will take Avignon and all your fucking money. Now just gotta kick the shit out of Austria, and we've got this one. But we took Avignon back. That's the important thing. You two get out of here. I'm not gonna buy followers. What kind of chicken shit is that? Yeah, get the fuck out of here with that shit. Alright, so we beat the papacy. Just got Austria left now. We're eventually going to want to take some land from them, but not right now. Probably my last whiskey of the night. Starting to feel it. Yeah, I hate those fucking assholes. I banned them both. No, I'm not buying followers. That's bullshit, man. I'm going to grow this channel organically, or I'm not going to grow it at all. Don't need some click farm. God only fucking knows where. So yeah, once we've won this war and integrated our territory, next step is definitely the rest of Burgundy. Also, I have the money for it now. Gonna move my main port to Calais. Oh well, once I'm at peace, I'm gonna move my main port to Calais. Definitely. So yeah, after Burgundy, and then the Rhineland, and probably the Romandy region of Switzerland here. And my next idea group is going to take me towards colonial domination, because I also want to build Louisiana and Acadia. Also, Poland is losing very badly to Genoa, which is interesting. And Sweden's looking pretty thick here. Muscovy's got its work cut out for it. We might not see a powerful Russia show up in this game. I don't know. I wonder if I can white piece the Austrians. Nope. Once I take Vienna, I should be able to. Well, I won't white piece them at that point. I'm just going to take a shitload of money from them. But yeah, Burgundy and then the Rhineland. True, and it looks like they're expanding into the Great Horde, so I think they'll take Ryazan. I just don't think they might form Russia, but I don't think Russia will be all that strong, because you got a really powerful Denmark forming, because Denmark still controls both Sweden and Norway, and Sweden's independence desire is not that high. Okay, yeah, we need money. We need money badly. So let's beat up the Austrians and take theirs. And that's the thing. I find that Austria... Hey, welcome to the stream. Thank you for turning out. But that's the thing about Russia in this game. They're one of the most overpowered states to do as the player. But I find that the Russia AI almost never does that well. They usually don't really see them taking a bite out of Central Asian hordes. Sometimes they don't even reach the Pacific. It's kind of sad, but... Russia is one of the most powerful states in the game mechanically, but they never... Yeah, AI is bad in general, but you'd think with all the benefits that come with, like, the Russian government form and the fact that they start with some of the highest development in Europe, you'd think the AI would manage to do better with that, but... Ooh, Holland inherited Burgundy. This is a weird map. So Holland has this, so that actually makes things easier on me. Because Holland doesn't have the same kind of allies Burgundy was able to bring in. I believe they still are, but Austria has lost the emperorship and has for a while. So I don't think we're going to have to deal with them when we want to expand into the HRE, which is great for us. Alright, move in there. This war should be over soon. I think Austria is the last major power left in it. The only problem is they have that union with Hungary that makes them a pain in the dick to deal with. No, they have the Iberian Union, but I'm allies with Castile right now. Though I think after this war, as long as I don't have a coalition, I will probably drop Castile as an ally because I do want Catalonia. I want to restore the Spanish March that Charlemagne had. Blow open the gates of Obertkarnen or Oberkartnen. I have a bit too much whiskey in me to be pronouncing the German correctly. Probably not, because I think that makes the borders look gross. Like France plus Catalonia, that's a sexy border. France plus Catalonia and Navarra, that is not a sexy border. I like sexy borders. Alright, gonna ditch these ships. Try to save some money. See, some people play EU4 to paint the map. Some people play EU4 to like min-max and use their strats. I play it to achieve sexy borders. Because I like an aesthetically pleasing map. They should be. Sexy borders are beautiful. I'm probably going to hold this army back so I don't need to expend too much more manpower in this conflict with Austria. But once I take Vienna, it should be all over for them. But you know, sexy borders are... That is my goal when I play this game. I want a country that... I don't expect the rest of the map will look nice, but I want my country to have sexy borders at the very least. It's really hard in CK2 and CK3, I will admit that. It is almost impossible to have sexy borders in those games because, well, feudalism does not like sexy borders. Like, say what you will about the German Empire circa 1900, it was appealing to look at on a map. It had nice looking borders. Oh, there we go. All right, Avignon is cored, which should make the coin the rest of this territory easily. And then we take admin ideas, and then exploration. There we go. Split off 3 ships. And so begins our New World missions. All right. Exactly. But yeah, England is... I abused England in the last war and gave Scotland back most of their cores. So I'm going to be looking to be able to give Scotland back the rest of their cores in the near future. All right, you guys go to go to actual Flanders or close to it. Get that missionary strength because we may need it. I'm probably just going to take money out of Austria, honestly. Until I beat the shit out of the rest of Holland, I'm only really going to be I'm not really going to be concerned with any of the provinces Austria controls. There we go. Staying hydrated. Just like you wanted, Beer Light. Rather, it's Captain Beer now, isn't it? Oh, there they go against what's left of Ireland, I think. Also true. Yeah, sorry. I missed that one. I've had a fair amount of whiskey tonight. But no, you're correct. So... the rise of Italy and Germany at the same time made England and France very nervous. Because England's navy was almost unbeatable if you looked at it as a whole. But locally, they had problems because their fleet was spread out around the entire world. So, in the North Sea and the Atlantic... Germany was getting close to having naval superiority over Britain. And in the Mediterranean, Italy was a risk to Britain's Mediterranean fleet and France's entire naval power. Now, granted, they were far more scared of Germany than they were of Italy, because Italy had nowhere near the industrial base that the German Empire did. But they were scared of these new powers rising in Central Europe, both in 1870, 1871. So, and yeah, eventually their paranoia of losing their historic grip on power cost them everything. True. But I think Britain realized there wasn't much they could do about the US. They would be able to do something about Germany, at the very least. Because I think at that point, the US already had a larger fleet than Britain. It just was more concentrated in one region of the ocean. Because Teddy Roosevelt had gone around the world with the Great White Fleet at that point. Actually, speaking of, you may be cool, but you will never be as cool as Teddy Roosevelt riding a moose. He was a goddamn legend if ever there was one. But yeah, I think England at that point had kind of started to realize that there were new powers rising, and they didn't like it one bit. There's actually an old historical problem called the Thucydides Trap, wherein a rising power and an established power are almost destined to come into conflict with one another. And most of the time, it's led to a catastrophic conflict when they have. And that's one of the things that worries me most about the China situation, is they are a rising power. The U.S. is an established power, and the rising power is beginning to challenge the established power. Now, historically, this leads to catastrophic war. Because the rising power wants to carve out its place in the world, and the established power wants to keep its place at the head of the world. Except the last time this happened was circa 1939, and neither power was nuclear armed. Also true. And I mean, I think the British at that point figured they were pretty culturally close to the US, and that the US wasn't that big a threat to them because the US didn't want to take over like India or their African holdings, which were their real cash cows at that point. And yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone figured what World War One would turn into. I'm just going to take money and war reps from the Austrians. And that's them out. See, World War One was very much a case of tactics outpacing, or technology outpacing tactics. Because trench warfare had worked great during the Boer War, but the Boers didn't have machine guns. The Germans did, and they had the industrial capacity to match or even surpass Britain. I'm sure they did, because the American colonies were their main source of cotton, which is a major resource for the British. But they were pretty... Howdy, welcome to the stream! But the British were pretty easily able to make up for those losses with the India and Egypt colonies. Yeah, India was pretty much as good for cotton growing as the US was. And the fact that they lost the US basically forced them to focus in on India. So, had the British kept the US, you probably don't see the British being as big in Asia as they were historically. Alright, so we have finally fully conquered Brittany. We have Avignon. And the next target is the rest of Burgundy. Which I don't think Holland has any strong allies, and no, they don't. They really don't. So that'll be an easy war once I've got my resources replenished. I will say, though, it was interesting as an American going to museums on English military history and reading their take on the Revolution. Because a lot of the English seem to look at it as like this little colonial dust up and not that huge a deal for like American military history. That's the beginning of it. That's a huge deal here. But the British kind of glossed over it a little bit. Like it was the colonies rebelling, but it's not as viewed as important as it is here, which I mean it makes sense. The American colonies were turning a profit for the British at that point, but India would go on to be far more profitable to the British than the American colonies were prior to the Revolution. Because what they got out of the Americas wasn't anything like concrete. They got, or at least it wasn't like physical gold like the Spanish hauled out of their New World colonies. What they got out of the American colonies were tobacco plantations and cotton plantations. Both plants were easy to grow elsewhere. Tobacco and cotton both grow well in Britain and Egypt. Also, yes, I couldn't possibly go into every single colony the British ever held, but India was easily as profitable, if not more profitable, than the American colonies were. Time to start coring my new territories. And we're going to have some separatists to deal with, but it'll be alright. The African colonies were never as valuable as India or America, but they were still pretty valuable in terms of especially raw natural resources. Especially because England, France, and most of the old naval powers wound up clear-cutting most of their old forests to build up ships in the age of sail. So actually one of the main exports from the American colonies was lumber, which they got elsewhere. Also, yeah, so the American colonies were pretty sparsely populated as of the Revolution. And yeah, part of the problem for England was as soon as they lost their technological edge, it was very difficult for them to maintain their colonial empire. Because the main reason England had such a large colonial empire was their technological superiority over pretty much all the countries they were invading. Like, it's great when you have a machine gun and your enemy doesn't, but as soon as your enemy has a machine gun, it's a bit more difficult to maintain control of them when they have numerical superiority. So, the British Empire was populous, but as soon as they lost their technological edge, they had a lot of trouble maintaining it. There's this rather infamous quote. Let me see if I can find it for you. Yeah, it went something like, whatever happens, we have got the Maxim and they have not. So, yeah, it's... Well, I mean, so the thing is, the settler colonies, like Canada, South Africa, Australia, and New Zealand were their political structures were majority ethnic English. So they were more than happy to be part of the empire. But India was not, and most of Africa was not. So it was much more... England had a much harder time maintaining control of them. It depends. So, in the U.S., part of the issue was the English didn't want colonists going west of the Appalachians, and colonists did because there was a lot of good land out there. But other than that, English people migrated out to Canada, Australia, and New Zealand and South Africa pretty frequently. And as for them being forced to give up their colonies post World War II, it was really more an issue of the Nazis were trying to establish an empire, and they made the idea of empire look bad to the established powers of Europe, i.e., Britain and France. So Britain kind of looked at itself and realized a lot of what they were doing in the colonies wasn't that far off from what the Nazis were doing in Germany, and I think there was some pressure there. And, well, Britain lost so many men fighting in the World Wars, they really did not have the military power to maintain an empire the size that it was. Because remember, at the peak of the British Empire, they controlled 1/4 of all the world's landmass. If you spend millions of men fighting 2 world wars, you're not going to be able to maintain that. The main reason Britain was able to control the empire was that it hadn't lost so many men. The last major war Britain had fought in were the Napoleonic Wars. Most of the other wars they fought were beating up natives who were bringing spears to bear against machine guns and cannons. So they hadn't fought a major European war in quite a long time. But when they did, when they had to fight 2 world wars against the Germans, they really couldn't make up for the losses they took in either war. And so they don't have the men to maintain their empire post-World War II. So there was some international pressure from the US, but the main reason was also true. But the main reason during World War II is that Britain loses so many men, they can't maintain their empire. And yeah, Britain, the Netherlands, and France. That is very debatable. I would say out of World War I, Germany came out the better. Because Britain came out the better because Germany entered economic crisis after World War I and lost all of its imperial holdings, which France and Britain actually split amongst themselves. In World War II, I don't think any European country came out of that one looking good. Pretty much every major city was little more than a pile of rubble that they had to rebuild. I mean, and that was the whole point of the Marshall Plan, was to help Western Europe rebuild from the destruction of the World Wars. Really World War II, more so than World War I. Germany was the main loser in World War I in terms of its economy, but all nations had lost a generation of young men, basically. I think that's why you see Britain and France being so reluctant to get involved when Germany starts being belligerent under Hitler, is that both nations had already lost an entire generation of young men to war. So Britain and France wanted to avoid that happening again. Oh yeah, and Germany now is a larger economy than Britain, I believe. But prior to World War I, Germany was not doing so great. And prior to World War II, and after World War II, or after World War I, Germany wasn't doing that great. And after World War II, no countries in Western Europe were doing that great. Except for maybe Spain, but they were still recovering from their own civil war. Just that their war ended before World War II ended, so They were already rebuilding when the rest of Europe was just ending the war. And really, we still do live in the shadow of World War II. Alright, do I take the institution? That is, and I believe Italy has more aircraft carriers than Britain right now, which must sting. I mean, I'm an American, so I don't really, I don't have that firm like I know who's in charge in the UK, but I don't have that firm a grasp of British politics, so I couldn't tell you. But it must sting a little bit that Italy has a larger carrier fleet than Britain. Because I think that's correct. I remember watching a YouTube video about carrier accounts around the world. But no, you're correct. Britain is not what it used to be, though it wishes it was. Granted, the empire only fully collapsed in, I believe it was 97, 98, when they gave up Hong Kong. That was technically the end of the British Empire. Yeah, fair enough. I remember watching a great history video on this subject where during the height of the empire, a lot of Brits were pretty ambivalent towards the whole thing. You either had a sense of pride in the empire or you were pretty ambivalent towards the empire. It was definitely more a pride project of British politicians, but your average British person, I don't know how much they cared about the empire one way or the other. And it sounds like, I mean, America had its own imperialist projects with Puerto Rico and the Philippines in particular. I don't think a lot of Americans really gave a shit. It was mostly for the sake of the politicians who wanted an empire. Yeah, I've heard that Boris Johnson is a bit of a goof, but I really don't know enough about British politics to speak to it. I mean, America, I would say, is pretty much an empire these days, but I don't think a lot of American people really want an empire. I think it's the politicians do. Hmm. Also, that was just as somebody from across the pond, I'd heard he was a pretty decent guy. I don't know what your take is on him, but I'd heard Prince Philip was a pretty decent person. I mean, and that's where I'm at as an American, where like, yeah, we have basically a global empire. I won't deny that. America is we have a global empire. I bring them home. Our soldiers shouldn't fucking be messing around in other parts of the world. Bring them home. Also, I mean, I will buy that, but given that, how old was he? He was in his 80s, 90s. Yeah, there you go. He was up there, so I'm not exactly surprised by that fact. But as an American, I wish our politicians would stop it with our imperialist bullshit and just bring all our troops home. Yeah, it could be a lot worse. I mean, we've got some real characters over on this side of the pond, but I wish we'd just stop fucking with other countries. No, it has not. And I mean, like, they don't call it the graveyard of empires for no reason. I have heard nothing but bad things about Boris Johnson. I'm not in England, so I can't really speak to how bad he is, but I have not heard good things about him, I will say that much. You can go right ahead. I rant about how much I dislike American politicians all the damn time. I can count the number of congressmen I like on one hand. Most of Congress fucking sucks. And if you ask me, the US hasn't had a good president since JFK. So yeah, you can feel free to rant about how much you hate Johnson. I have never actually played a Horde Nation. I usually like playing the established ones. France is usually my go-to. You can. I think you have to migrate out to the steppe, but the main reason I'm playing France right now is they're kind of my go-to, and I'm exploring the Leviathan mechanics right now. Well, I mean, on our end we had both Jen Psaki and Biden take a week off while the Afghanistan shit show was happening. Yeah, that sounds about right. Uh, I can tell you, as someone who lives in Maryland, I'm only all too familiar with corrupt politicians blowing the public's money. I mean, I grew up in the shadow of Baltimore, so one of the most corrupt cities in the United States. I'm familiar with wasting a lot of public money on projects that don't go anywhere. Also, yeah, Poland is pretty fucking thick. Yeah, and the Byzantines are still hanging around. And also, yeah, I really would not be surprised if they had planned that shit show. I mean, I will tell you, like, I mean, I bet that would. I mean, is forgive me if I'm incorrect, but I believe the most recent Scottish independence vote happened under Johnson's watch, or was that the woman who came before him, Theresa May? I believe her name was. He's pretty fucking bad. I would say he's like a he's less a third term of Obama and more a second term of Carter. He is basically Jimmy Carter, except he's a much shittier person than Jimmy Carter. See, Jimmy Carter was a bad president, but at least he wasn't a bad person. Biden's a piece of shit, and he's a bad president. Granted, I have no real affection for any of the recent U.S. presidents. They all suck. So, like I said, the U.S. hasn't had a good president since JFK. JFK was the last good president the U.S. had, in my estimation. As for the U.S. politicians looking right wing to Europe, I think it's just the U.S. has a further right Overton window than most of Europe, at least in the economic sense. So, as for new mechanics in Leviathan, one of the big things I've been exploring is the great projects, which give you some pretty beefy bonuses for upgrading. They also did a few updates to the government tab and kind of reformed the government reforms setup. I figured I'd download Leviathan and play around with it for everybody here so we could see what it was all about. Also got to absorb some more land. I think we're in a state where we can start repealing the monopolies I've given to the estates. And we're getting close to being able to repay our loans. Bernie. Bernie Sanders? I would have less issue with him if he weren't such a hypocrite. So, I myself, full disclosure, I am politically a very libertarian. I dream of an America where it's just coast to coast married lesbian weed farmers with fully automatic weapons. So I'm about as pro freedom an American as you're gonna meet. Legalize everything. I don't really give a shit what people do. So I can tolerate some pretty wacky political ideas, and Bernie certainly is wacky. But what I don't like about him is that he claims to be a socialist, but then he owns 4 homes and is a millionaire. And you'll notice he stopped railing against the millionaires when he became one. Now it's just the billionaires. It used to be the millionaires and the billionaires. Now it's just the billionaires. So I would have less issue with Bernie Sanders if he weren't a hypocrite, but he is. Like, I admit, my political ideas are pretty fucking wacky to a lot of Americans. Like, but I'm honest about them, and I don't. Right, and I'm saying that as an exaggeration because I've found that's the easiest way to explain my political beliefs. Like, yeah, you probably don't need a full auto Kalashnikov to mow things down, but the principle is that, like, I think the Second Amendment has merit, and I'm generally like pro freedom. Is like, as long as you're not hurting anybody, feel free to do what you like. I really do not give a shit. Like, if what you're doing is between all consenting adults on your own property, it's none of my business. And what I do on mine is none of yours. So if I leave you alone, you leave me alone, we're all happy. That's basically the operative theory behind my political opinions. But yeah, EU4, and I bet it is, but it's so ingrained in the US at this point. Like, it's part of the culture. Granted, it kind of depends on where you are in the U.S. Not every place is the same. Like, it's, I'll go along with armor-piercing bullets, but most gun crime... Yeah, and part of the reason the Japanese were so terrified to invade the U.S. was that, I believe it was a Japanese admiral who said, there'll be a gun behind every blade of grass. And yeah, I actually have a friend who he thinks monarchy is the ideal form of government. But yeah, monarchy is kind of a weird idea to me as an American. I mean, I'm a historian, so I'm not like unfamiliar with the idea, but I guess it's weird that so many European countries have, and I like to think of myself as fairly well traveled. I've been to several countries in Europe. It's just kind of weird to me that the vestiges of the monarchy are still hanging around in so many places when, I mean, the U.S. has never had one. Granted, I do realize just how young a country the U.S. is, because when I went to Paris, and I went to the Cathedral of Notre Dame, and one of the main things that hit me was, this building is older than my entire country. And yeah, I do realize that the monarchy in England has no real power anymore. I mean, I think it's the same story in like the Netherlands, Spain, and the Nordic countries. Yes, we did, but that was just a crazy person who nobody had the heart to correct. Everyone thought he was kind of funny, so they didn't bother correcting him when he claimed to be the emperor of the U.S. And that is true. Germany as a modern political structure is pretty recent. I mean, much more recent than the US, 1870. But I would say Germany as a culture is far older than the US because Germany as a culture goes back at least until the Frankish Empire, maybe before. And I realize that, like, technically, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Queen still technically has veto power on anything passed by Parliament, but she hasn't used it. Like she has a similar power to the U.S. president in that regard, where she can veto acts of Parliament, but again, she hasn't used it because that would that wouldn't be a good look. It wasn't, but there were German speaking regions, Italian speaking regions, and Czech speaking regions. Yeah, so she basically rubber stamps everything, but she hasn't actually used her veto power for anything in quite a long time, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so that's the thing is most of the Kaisers of the HRE were German because the vast majority of the Holy Roman population were Germans. So Germany as a cultural region has existed for a long time, but Germany as a independent unitary state is very recent. Also, that sounds about right because I believe it was under Victoria that the monarchy really started losing a lot of its power, or after under her successors, and Parliament really becomes the main power in British government. Also true, the Habsburg empires got pretty close to unifying the empire, but they were not able to actually seal the deal there. I I have nothing but I cannot I like as a historian, I understand why people in the past felt the way they did, but as a modern person, I can only laugh at that idea because it's kind of funny. And also, yeah, the Habsburgs started somewhere in Switzerland and then just kind of married their way into power. Well, there was that kind of fits into Austria's MO as a country because there is the motto of Austria during the period of Habsburg rule was let other countries war, you happy Austria marry. But eventually they ran out of people to marry and started marrying each other, and then you get the Habsburg jaw. The infamous Habsburg jaw. Oh, Prussia is fascinating. One of the things I find very interesting about Prussia is that, I mean, we all know what Hitler's thoughts on gay people were. But he idolized Frederick the Great, who is arguably one of the most famous homosexuals in history. Frederick the Great was once quoted as saying, "You can have all the pretty girls of Berlin. I prefer the company of tall soldiers." And then he never touched the woman that he married. He was buried with his dogs rather than his wife, and he made sure that the kingdom passed to the son of his sister, who was his dear friend, because I don't think he ever planned on having children. Which I will say, I have been to Frederick the Great's summer palace in Potsdam, Sans-Souci, and I highly recommend it because the man had impeccable taste. It's like mini Versailles. It's beautiful. if you get the chance to go to Berlin, Potsdam is not that far away. Go see Frederick the Great's Summer Palace. And he was the definition of a Renaissance man anyway, because Frederick the Great was also a virtuoso flautist. Like, that's kind of a weird fact about him. But, and also, yeah, Hitler did have a few known gay people in his personal circle, which is just part of what's weird about Nazism, is that it makes exceptions to its rather strict ideology whenever it's convenient for it. But no, go see Frederick the Great's Summer Palace. It is gorgeous. Let me see if I can pull up some pictures for you all. Yes, here it is. It is a positively gorgeous building. Also true. I mean, but he also tried to elope with his or he tried to run off to England with his tutor as a child. Um, I am almost certain Frederick the Great was gay. But his palace is breathtakingly beautiful, and I can't recommend seeing it enough. Yeah, I've seen this in person, and these pictures don't do it justice. This building is beautiful. Again, it's like mini Versailles. Oh, Versailles! I have been to Versailles too, and it is. Words don't do that place justice either. Versailles is beautiful. The Hall of Mirrors was fucking incredible. I actually went with it was a trip orchestrated by my high school actually, and I got the chance to go on a World War II themed trip of Europe. So we got to see the Netherlands, France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and some of Germany. And God, I wish I could go on that trip again. It was so beautiful. No, definitely. If the opportunity presents itself, do travel. Because not only do you get an appreciation for other cultures, you also yeah, Louis XIV, the Sun King, was such a fucking character. But no, you're correct in that he was one of the last like proper French monarchs. But no, if you have the opportunity, regardless of where you come from, travel, because you get, and when COVID's over, travel, because you get an appreciation for cultures that aren't your own, and you get an appreciation for your own culture, because seeing how other countries do things makes you appreciate what your own country does correctly all that much more, or what you love about your own country. It emphasizes it. Because after traveling, I learned, in part, why I love my own country. Also true, Napoleon III is largely forgotten, in part because he ran the empire into the ground. Also, Austria has excommunicated us, the bastards. I mean, yeah, modern Paris is very much the creation of the Napoleonic emperors. Granted, modern Paris is a rebuilt version of that because it was a large parts of it were destroyed during World War II, and they made an effort to rebuild it in the Napoleonic style, for which I commend them, because I don't like that in Germany, in Berlin, they basically rebuilt it as a modern city. They didn't really do what the French did and try to rebuild it as it was. They built all these new modern glass and steel structures that, I mean, there are some streets in Berlin that look like they could be in America. I mean, it's not... It kind of lost something when it did that as a city. Granted, the Soviets were never going to do that, so... East Berlin was always going to be fucked architecture-wise, but... Granted, when I was there... Actually, where I got that cap back there, the Soviet officer's cap, it didn't, and then the Austrians took control of the Papal State and then excommunicated me. They don't like you afterwards, but you can still be on good terms with the Pope. But no, the Austrians gained control of the papacy. And also, yeah, but in East Berlin, where I got that Soviet officer's cap back there on the wall, I actually stayed in an apartment building that had been turned into a hotel. It was a Soviet bloc apartment that had been converted into a hotel after the reunification of Berlin. And it had suicide-proof windows, the ones that opened upwards, because they were so concerned with people throwing themselves out of the windows in Soviet-era Berlin. And it also had a bowling alley in the hotel lobby, which was cool, but weird, but still really fucking cool. But the thing about going to this hotel that used to be an apartment building is that you visit most hotels. I would imagine most of you have some experience with apartments. Either you've lived in one or you have a friend who's lived in one. Well, this did not look like a hotel room. It looked like an apartment. Like, the Pope won't like you, but I only got excommunicated because the Austrians got control of the papacy. Because I had a pretty good relationship with the Pope prior to seizing Avignon. Actually, speaking of France and travel, if you do go to France, visit Reims, because the cathedral there is, I would argue, even more beautiful than Notre Dame, at least prior to the fire. Because I'm very glad I got to see Notre Dame prior to the fire. But Reims Cathedral is beautiful. And they have this great statue of Joan of Arc out front. Actually, I come from a long line of French Canadians, and one of my great aunts her first name was Jeanne d'Arc. So, I that's one of my most tangible connections to a sort of non-mainstream American culture. So I would very much love to visit French Canada. Montreal and Quebec, which is where my grandmother's family's from. Well, technically they're from the village of Saint-Jean-de-Christophe. Forgive me if I butchered that pronunciation. I did try. But I would love to see French Canada. And I mean, because I've been to France proper, largely Paris and Normandy, but I would love to go see Montreal and Quebec. Actually, my grandmother still has a bit of her old accent. She doesn't really pronounce H's all that well, so hello kind of becomes hello, because she grew up speaking French. So even after English, even after not speaking French for long time, she still has a bit of that accent still in it. And it was through her that I am a very distant relation to Justin Trudeau, which I'm not exactly proud of. Just interesting, but yeah, I'm not proud to be related to Justin Trudeau, but it's a fact. God, that's what happens when you fucking elect a drama teacher. Granted, we haven't done that much better here, but still. I do want to save. I want to pay back these loans, so I should probably be trying to save money where I can. Only got one more group of rebels I'm gonna have to deal with. Also, yeah, that is Louisiana is a fascinating state because after the British took control of the French Acadia colony, the Cajuns are it's sort of like the shortening of Canadian because the Cajuns were the French Canadians who fled south to Louisiana after French Canada became part of the British colony of Canada. And they settled there and they sort of reinforced the French cultural heritage of Louisiana. And to this day, Louisiana is the only state that uses something other than British common law. Louisiana law is actually based on Napoleonic law. Learned that in my one semester of law school. I went, I hated it, but I still learned a couple things. And that's also why Louisiana has more lawyers per capita than any other state in the U.S. It's because their legal system is so weird relative to the rest of the country. It's sort of this weird hybrid of English common law, which is what the rest of the U.S. uses, and Napoleonic law, which is largely used in France and a lot of continental Europe, and the state of Louisiana. And it's because of the U.S. federal system. States often have different laws. Oh, we're pretty far from the 10th Amendment at this point, but historically in the U.S., the 10th Amendment made it so that any any anything that wasn't specifically enumerated to the federal government per the Constitution was up to the states. So states often passed their own laws that were often very different from the federal government but didn't necessarily conflict with federal law. Louisiana was one of these states, and it chose to retain its French heritage by using a form of Napoleonic law as opposed to English common law. Granted, it had to hybridize because Napoleonic law is very different from English common law. And actually, I will tell you, in American law schools, we still study English cases because they're part of the common law group, basically. So a lot of cases in England prior to the Revolution still hold precedent in the U.S. Which I always thought was interesting. But if you open an American law textbook, you will find English cases in there from prior to 1776. And also, yeah, I don't think Louisiana's changing its laws anytime. It has a huge number of lawyers per capita. Actually, New Orleans is really high on my bucket list of places I would love to visit. It's actually supposed to be one of the most haunted states in the U.S. Or one of the most haunted cities, sorry. And I will say, as somebody who went through at least the first half of a year in law school, um, a lot of American law has its origins in jolly old England. And a lot of the legal principles underpinning the American system borrow very heavily from England. But yeah, for those of you who aren't in the US, you might be surprised to know that English cases do have precedent and still have some influence in American legal proceedings. So I don't think this is a bad showing for the night as we're kind of wrapping things up. We are almost at France's modern borders in just 1529. So I'd wager we could reach the Rhine by 1600, 1650 thereabouts. I don't think that particular law, at least not in Maryland, it doesn't. Is that an actual law in places in England? It's illegal to walk down the street with a fish suspiciously? Because that's fantastic. I know there is one city in the US that actually has banned ice cream sales on every day except Sunday, I believe. We've got some weird laws hanging around in this country too, make no mistake, but yeah, we've got a bunch of weird non-enforced laws as well, like the ban on ice. Let's see, in one state it's illegal to like wear. Let me see if I can find this. Let's see. Yeah, there's a few weird laws that you can find in the U.S. Like, stink bombs are outlawed in the state of Alabama. You can't honk your horn near a sandwich shop in Arkansas after 9 p.m. It's illegal to whisper in church in Delaware. That might be my favorite. In Georgia, it's illegal to eat fried chicken with a knife and fork. Well, I've broken this one a lot of times. It's illegal in Maryland to swear in public. I do that all the fucking time. I've broken that law on stream. So if a Maryland state trooper breaks through that fucking door, you know why? Just swore too much on stream. Exactly. No, there's a lot of weird laws that hang around in legal system, at least in common law legal systems that aren't really enforced because they're just weird. Nice. Yeah, no, you still got about 15 minutes before I log off for the night. Behind every law, there's a story. I need to know the story behind that one. Probably. But yeah, no, I need to know the story behind that you can't serenade the prime minister from the streets. There's a story behind that one. There's gotta be. So yeah, those of you in the UK, if you're ever wondering, are we the only ones with bizarre fucking laws that make no sense? No, the US is right there with you. We've got a lot of weird fucking laws. I mean, we're one of the most litigious states in the litigious countries in in the world for a reason. Oh, okay, I gotcha. I mean, that makes some kind of sense. I'd imagine some disgruntled voters from the opposite party. Because if I haven't been to 10 Downing Street, but my understanding is it's pretty much in the heart of London. Um, so I would imagine it wouldn't be that hard for some disgruntled voters from the other party to sing a nasty song to the Prime Minister. Yeah, I did know that one, but there is actually a reason for that, believe it or not. So back in the old days, and old days meaning like 18th, 19th century, the Chesapeake Bay, which I grew up right near, has it used to have just like mountains of oysters, and it's not a very deep body of water. I haven't heard of that scientist. I feel like I need to now, though. But yeah, so the Chesapeake Bay used to have basically mountains of oysters, and the bay is only about 30 feet deep at its deepest point. So it used to be that ships traversing the bay would actually like have their hulls opened up on these mountains of like calcified oyster shells. And the thing is, they used to clean the bay so effectively, the water was basically clear. But if you go to the bay today, it's cloudy. So once we realized that by overfishing these oysters, we were destroying the Chesapeake Bay, we were like, hey, maybe we ought to stop this. So then a lot of laws were imposed to prevent the overfishing and mistreatment of the oyster population because they were vital to one of the most important bodies of water in the eastern United States. Because almost every river from New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, even parts of Virginia, all feed into the Chesapeake Bay. It is one of the most important watersheds in the U.S. Well, I have a buddy in Gaithersburg who's not that far from Rockville. I should probably tell him that. I don't think Baltimore County has as many of those laws in it. That's where I grew up, but at least I've never encountered any. Granted, I don't think anybody really enforces them, so don't think I ever would encounter one. Yeah, I have had to drive on that road. Not very frequently, but the few times I have, it was just a litany of profanity from me the entire fucking time. Anybody who's ever driven with me will tell you I have a horrible road rage. Mostly in the sense of shouting at people, but still. Alright, I'll take the Diplo power hit. That's fine. Now, I'm from right around the Baltimore area, and I've never encountered any particular laws like that. Yeah, well, I mean, you got that on Route 42, the Baltimore-Washington Pike. That's the one I grew up near. And there are parts of Route 40 that are just plain depressing, I'll tell you that much. But I grew up right near it, so couldn't really avoid them. My childhood home is all but a few blocks from it, so we'd get some weirdness coming in from 40. Granted, I don't know if any of you are like this might make more sense to those of you who are from the British Isles slash Ireland, but I mean there are parts of Route 40 that aren't too dissimilar from Shepherd Street in Dublin. It's there's a lot of spots in Baltimore that are a bit like that. True, Ellicott City is beautiful. Ellicott City is actually older than the United States. Um, if you ever find yourself in the mid-Atlantic, visit Ellicott City. It is a beautiful historical town on the Patapsco River. It can just be like if you're in the United States to see things like DC and the area around it, take a day, go to Ellicott City. You can see everything it has in a day, but it is a very nice little town. So yeah, for those of you travelers in the chat, come check out Ellicott City if you get the chance. You will not have wasted your time. Get the fuck out of here with that buy followers crap. And if you want, it's there's actually some great ghost tours of it. It's a beautiful old little town. So yeah, if you ever find yourself like seeing sites in DC or Baltimore, check out Ellicott City. Oh, Council of Trent happened. Do we want to do harsh or conciliatory? Let's go real hardcore French here. Hardcore Catholic. Yeah, I'm pretty fucking sick of it. I'm not interested in whatever the fuck you got going on. I'm not gonna buy followers. So I think once I've got these loans all paid back, I am probably going to focus on absorbing the rest of Burgundy. So by the end of the century, we should have absorbed the vast majority of it. Also, if you do go to Ellicott City, go to a restaurant called Manor Hill Tavern. They have the single best cheeseburger you will have in your entire life, I swear to God. It's called the Tavern Burger. I don't know what they do to it, but it is like crack for your mouth. It is delicious. And their fries are fucking beautiful. So yeah, if you ever find yourself in the Baltimore area, do yourself a favor and check out Ellicott City and go to the Manor Hill Tavern. You will not regret it, I promise you. And if you're into ghosts and stuff, there's a bunch of haunted sites in Ellicott City. They're supposedly haunted. I don't know how much I personally believe in it, but there are a bunch of supposedly haunted buildings in and around Ellicott City, so... I mean, that's one of the coolest parts about living in Maryland is we're one of the oldest colonies, so we've got some pretty cool stuff here. Alright. Making good progress on these loans here. Once those are paid off, we should be able to take another chunk out of Burgundy. That would be fucking awesome. I would play the shit out of that. I took an entire class on Egyptian history in college, just for funsies. And one of the main topics we covered was the Bronze Age collapse. I would love to play that. I mean, it's probably never going to happen, but because I don't think many people are that familiar with that period in history, but they should be. How is the Council of Trent doing? Alright, looks like Harsh is going to have it. Oh yeah, definitely I'm taking Corsica. Genoa's pretty squishy right now, so I can probably take it soon. So I'm actually going to send someone to fabricate a claim. Certainly have the naval strength to do it. Once I pay back these loans, I can build my fleet back up and continue doing what I'm doing. At some point, I'm going to beat the shit out of England and give the rest of Scotland's provinces back. Yeah, it's a historical dark age, so there are still some things historians don't know. There are still some things archaeologists don't know, and it's actually one of those periods in history that both historians and archaeologists work together on. I have not, but my sister has, and she is a big fan. As for the Sea People, the theory I like to go with is that they were multiple groups of people. Well, there was the Bronze Age collapse was because of a lot of reasons. There was economic crisis. There was environmental crisis in terms of a weird number of earthquakes that all happened right about the same time in the same place. And then you have the Sea People, who were a group of nomadic people who showed up on boats and really just fucked everybody's shit up, is the most eloquent way of putting it. And nobody's really sure where they came from. Some linguists say they might have been Sardinians, Corsicans, Cretans, because there are some names that sound very similar. Like there's the Shardana. It's believed they came from Sardinia. But there were a number of different peoples from the Mediterranean, some from Europe, probably some from Africa too, who came to the wealthy civilizations of Anatolia and the Levant and Egypt and just wrecked everything, basically. Yes, the Shekelesh were another group. But basically, all the great civilizations of the ancient Near East collapsed at once because of environmental crises like the earthquakes, economic crises, the collapse of trade, and the sea peoples applying external pressure. And also, yes, the Catholic Church did maintain some continuity with the ancient Roman Empire. And I will be talking a lot about that with my next few episodes on the podcast, which are going to be covering Constantine and the rise of Christianity in Rome. But I think that's about it for me, so I'm going to call it here. Good night, everybody. This is Renegade Historian signing off, and you have a great week. I'll see everybody on Thursday.